There are cars that are fast, and then there are cars that take the idea of speed, strap a pair of superchargers to it, pour nitromethane on top, light a match, and let the laws of physics try to figure out what the hell just happened. The Hurst Hairy Olds was the latter, a twin-engined, all-wheel drive contraption that looked like it had been dreamt up during a fever-induced nightmare. It was raw, unfiltered muscle car insanity. A 1966 Oldsmobile 442 with not one but two 7-liter V8s. But to make it even more insane, these motors then got force-fed enough air to make a jet engine feel inadequate. It was supposed to be a promotional car, something to get people excited about Hurst shifters and Oldsmobile's so-called performance ambitions. Instead, it became an icon of unhinged excess, the sort of machine that made proper race cars look underprepared. But to understand how the Hurst Hairy Olds came to be, you need to look at the era it was born into. The 1960s were a golden age for muscle cars, when manufacturers were engaged in an arms race to see who could wedge the biggest lump of iron into a mid-size sedan and get it down the quarter mile first. Oldsmobile, a brand not usually associated with outright performance, had the 442, its entry into the muscle car war. But it needed something to make it stand out in a field dominated by Mopars and Mustangs. Hurst Performance, the Pennsylvania-based company known for making some of the best shifters in the business, was already working closely with Oldsmobile. When the two teamed up, they didn't just build a faster 442. No, they created something that would make even the wildest factory hot rods of the time look tame. The result was a car that defied conventional engineering. Instead of one big engine, Hurst and Oldsmobile engineers thought, why not two? Instead of rear-wheel drive, they went for all-wheel drive because when you're pushing 2,400 horsepower, you need all the help you can get to keep the car from vaporizing the rear wheels into oblivion. They took two Oldsmobile 425 cubic inch V8s, each topped with a massive supercharger, and mounted one to the front wheels and another at the back. Each engine had its own transmission and drove its own set of wheels, meaning that the driver, the brave soul tasked with piloting this rocket, had to manage two gearboxes, two throttle bodies, and enough torque to twist the car into a pretzel if something went wrong. And I'm not even joking, this is the interior. Anyways, the sheer insanity of this setup made it unlike anything else on the drag strip. Other exhibition cars, like the famous Hemi Underglass, were designed to do wheelies and put on a show. The Hairy Olds, on the other hand, was there to leave craters in the tarmac. On paper, it should have been unbeatable, a car with twice the power of anything else on the strip, and enough grip to make the Earth itself rotate in the opposite direction. But in reality, things were a bit more complicated. The two engines never seemed to agree on what they wanted to do, making the car skittish at the best and downright uncontrollable at worst. Other times the sheer torque overwhelmed the front suspension, twisting it so violently that the wheels would go full pigeon toe, sending the car wandering unpredictably down the track. And then there was the smoke. So much smoke, with four tires doing their best impression of a burnout competition every time the throttle was floored. In other words, this thing was a nightmare to drive. Speaking of, the driver was none other than Gentleman Joe, a drag racing legend and possibly the only person brave enough or crazy enough to wrestle this mechanical monstrosity down the strip. Even for someone of his talent, keeping the Hairy Olds in a straight line was about as easy as holding onto a fire hose blasting out nitroglycerin. But it didn't matter. The spectacle was the point. Every time it went, the Hairy Olds drew enormous crowds. Its twin engine roaring like some kind of demonic symphony, its tires disintegrating in the most glorious display of mechanical excess imaginable. Of course, as with all things, this unhinged, it couldn't last forever. The car's unpredictability meant that it was more of a showpiece than a serious competitor, and its career on the drag strip was relatively short-lived. The car was retired after the 1966 season, while a second version was built to continue the tour in 1967 and 1968. That second car made a rather dramatic end, crashing in spectacular fashion at Niagara Dragway, which, given the nature of the machine, was probably an inevitability. The first car, meanwhile, was lucky enough to survive. After years of obscurity, it was restored by a team of Oldsmobile enthusiasts, including some of the original engineers who built it in the first place, ensuring that at least one example of this absurd tire-destroying monster would live on. Now, the Hurst Hairy Olds was a super unique car because there has never really been anything quite like it. The closest parallel, perhaps, is the twin-engine madness of the Citroën 2CV Sahara, a tiny French off-roader with a separate engine for each axle. But whereas that was designed for cautious exploration of the desert, the Hairy Olds was made for war. In terms of sheer excess, the only real comparison is the modern-day Unicorn, the twin-turbo all-drive Mustang built for Ken Block, a car that took the spirit of the Hairy Olds and brought it into the 21st century with even more technology. Now, I will say, yes, the Unicorn only has one engine, but 1400 horsepower sent to all four wheels is still pretty insane, and this thing is also known for the crazy burnouts it can perform. But to end this video off, the Hurst Hairy Olds was not the most refined, nor the most successful, nor even the fastest car of its time, but in terms of sheer spectacle, nothing else came close. It was a machine built not to win races, but to burn itself into the memories of everybody who saw it. It was quite simply one of the most insane creations ever to hit a drag strip, and in a world where modern performance cars are increasingly refined, sanitized and controlled by computers, the Hurst Hairy Olds remains a glorious reminder of what happens when you throw caution to the wind, strap two engines to a car and see what happens. But at the end of the video, please let me know what you guys think of this car, what do you think of its story, and if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Now, if you guys did like this video, you will most probably enjoy most of my other stuff, so just go through my channel, see if there's something else to like. I'll check you guys in the next one. Cheers, eh?